Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I do appreciate you being with me, and going to continue our examination of Sukkot, the Feast of Harvest, the Feast of Resurrection, the Feast of Lights. Uh, Yesterday, I shared with you how on the last day of the feast, and I'm filming this video on the same day, which is Sunday morning. And so I made mention to you about I'm not sure if they lit the huge candelabra in the temple on the first day or every day of the 7 day Feast of Sukkot. So I can't comment on whether some of you have helped me out on that. But I just want to point out again, and I want to share with you some of that typological significance here. You see, that candelabra obviously represented light. It was light. But the Jews believed, I read in some writings years ago, the Jews believed that candelabra represented Israel being a light to the world. Because you see, God chose Israel to bring salvation to the world. Israel failed pretty miserably, and God knew they would, because it was never, ever, ever God's original intent for Israel to be his exclusive people. They were a conduit. They were an instrument to bring light, to bring the Messiah into the world, so that all nations of the earth might be blessed. Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. So the symbolism of lighting that huge candelabra on the last day of the feast, symbolically giving light to the world. And let's not forget, Jesus, in the direct context of the Feast of Sukkot, said, I am the light of the world. If any man follows after me, he shall not walk in darkness, but in light. Well, I wonder if that has anything to do with Daniel chapter 12, because in Daniel chapter 12, at the time of the resurrection, those who are righteous shall shine forth in the kingdom. And Jesus said, you follow me, that's to be in the kingdom, and you'll not walk in darkness. I am the light of the world. How many times in Jesus' ministry do we see this imagery of light versus darkness? Matthew chapter 4:17. Those of Zebulun, those of Issachar, those who dwell in the far reaches of the land of Israel, they dwelt in darkness, but they have seen a great light. And the writer of Romans, Paul, said, brethren, the night is far spent. The day has already begun to dawn. Romans chapter 13, 11 and following. The day has drawn near. 1 John chapter 2, 5 to 8. Even now, brethren, the darkness is passing away, and the true light is already shining. Is that a different light from that in Daniel chapter 12, the righteous shining forth in the kingdom? I don't think so. And you see, there's something in Daniel chapter 12. And again, keeping in mind the imagery of the great candelabra and what it foreshadowed, that is being a light to the world, and Jesus saying, hey, guys, that's not the true light. I am the true light. Just like he said, I'm the water of life. If any man follows me, out of his belly shall flow rivers of life. This he spake of the Holy Spirit, which would be given when he was glorified. But he was not yet glorified. Do you see how all of this imagery, because you see, by the way, on Sukkot, what did they have? They had the pouring of the water. The pouring of the water. The high priest and his attendants, and he had a golden bowl in his hand. And they walked out of the city or of the temple through what they called the water gate, went down to the pool of Siloam, took that bowl, filled it with water, carried it back up through into the temple, and poured it out at the base of the altar. And Jesus says, I'm the water of life. You see, that water represented their wilderness wandering and how God marvelously and miraculously gave them water during the wilderness wandering. And Jesus is saying, well, let's not forget, I'm the true bread that the Father sent from heaven. Man, eat of me, he shall never hunger, he shall never thirst. All of these images are part and parcel of the Feast of Sukkot. And so for Jesus to say, I'm the bread of life, I am the water, I am the light, he is bringing all of this imagery of the feast days into its climax, focusing them on himself. And he's saying what the first Exodus foreshadowed, what your feast days, this feast day of resurrection life, will be fulfilled in me. It truly is absolutely wonderful. It's beautiful. Now, I want you to notice something. In the context of that giving of light, because you see, the giving of light is seen throughout the New Testament as being taught the gospel of Jesus Christ. Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, if our gospel is hidden, it is hidden to those who are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the eyes of those who do not believe, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ shine in their hearts. Do you see how light is illumination of being taught the gospel of Jesus Christ? It's not visible luminescence. It is coming to the knowledge of Christ. Okay, I've got to hurry here, running out of time already. So, Daniel was told that at the end of the age harvest, those who are wise shall shine. Well, who are the wise? Well, in the context, they're obviously the righteous. That's what he calls them. The righteous will shine forth. But now watch this. Why would they shine forth? Boy, I got to tell you, the very first time this hit me, and I was reading it one day, good old King James, and I picked up, and I've got a shelf in the hallway just out here. I started picking up translations. Every single one of them conveyed the same truth. Now, I mentioned this last week, but I want to drive this home. And I want you to know that before I proceed, just this morning, I got on BibleGateway.com. And folks, if you don't use that as a Bible study tool, you're really missing out. It's really, really convenient. The same is true of BibleHub.com. It's extremely convenient because it gives you Greek study aids, and it also provides a really wide array of commentaries. So between Bible Gateway and Bible Hub, they're tools I use every single day. All right? You don't have to be a scholar to use this. It's free of charge. Okay, so you know, just this morning, I got on Bible Gateway and I looked up every single English translation of Daniel chapter 12, verse 3. Then shall the righteous shine as the stars in the firmament. And watch this. And those who turn many to righteousness. What? That's right. Let's go back there. Let's read this again. They that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. Now, I'm convinced that those who are wise are those who are in the last part of the chapter. Go your way, Daniel, until the time of the end. Knowledge shall be increased. But the wicked will not understand. You see, the righteous, the wise, would understand, and the inspired knowledge, inspired revelation, would increase. And now here in Daniel chapter 12, verse 3, these are the wise. They are the ones who are going to understand. Because it says in verse 10, many shall be purified, made white. That's Daniel chapter 12, 2 and 3. But the wicked will do wickedly. None of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And again, once again, verse 3, they that are wise shall shine as the brightness. And they that turn, but here's the point I want to get to. I've got to get to it. They that are wise, or the righteous, those who turn many to righteousness, shall shine like the stars forever and ever. Folks, here's what I want you to catch. We are told constantly the resurrection happens at the end of time. At the end of time, there's no more sin. Thus, there is no more turning people to righteousness. That is to say, there is no more conversion. There is no more evangelism. That is not what Daniel teaches. At the time of the resurrection, when the resurrection would occur, the wise, the righteous, will turn many to righteousness. It does not say, I said this earlier, and you've got to catch this, not one single translation renders it as those who had turned the wicked to righteousness shall shine. No, not one. The force of this is very clearly, as every English translation renders it, at the time of the resurrection, ensuing from the resurrection, the righteous will turn many to righteousness, and as a result of that turning many to righteousness, they will shine like the stars. This is nothing less than, nothing different from evangelism after the resurrection. Now, folks, this is not the only passage in the Old Testament that teaches this. In Isaiah chapter 66, you have the Lord coming in flaming fire, which Paul applied to his day, his generation. It would be the time in which the righteous would be rewarded and the wicked punished at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem. Isaiah 66, verse 6 and following. But after that day of the Lord, what do you have? Survivors of that day. Well, what is the day of the Lord? Oh, it's the resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. Day of the Lord, resurrection, are synchronous events. And in Isaiah 66, after the day of the Lord, survivors of that day would go to all of the nations, and they would go to the nations who never knew the Lord, never called on his name. That means they're not Israelites. And bring them to Zion to worship the God of Israel. They would turn the pagan nations to righteousness after the day of the Lord. This is incredible and wonderful. And it proves that the end of the age is not the end of time. It proves that the resurrection is not the end of human history. It proves that the idea that after the day of the Lord, there's no more life on earth, again, with no more sin and no more evangelism. It completely, totally destroys the futuristic view of resurrection. Oh, and by the way, of the new creation. But I'm out of time. Thanks so much for joining me. Don't forget, go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Take advantage of this fantastic 2-book special for all the month of February. All right? Hey, I'll see you on the flip side. Pardon me.